subject to propose. Politics, religion, we talk about the real world we live in. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. On the Vera show, from purpose, uplift, encourage, inspire, motivate, and let's talk about it. On the Vera show, the Vera show.
Hello, hello, hello. I am so excited today that I have on today my guest, Rita Ferraro. Did I say your name? Did I pronounce that right? Ferraro?
It's okay. It's Fierro, but that's okay.
Fierro. Okay. Thank you. Well, anyway, I'm excited to have her here. She was here a couple of years ago. We had a power-packed show. And today is going to be the same. We've got so much that's going on in our country, and with racism and white supremacy and attack on people of color, we've got some issues that we need to address. But before we do, let me share a little bit about Dr. Rita. She was born in New York to Italian parents and is a social justice consultant and coach. Everything Dr. Rita does is about liberation. Dr. Rita hones the vision of change makers to realize a more humane world. With 28 years of expertise in group decision making and monitoring and evaluation, Dr. Rita has evaluated $95 million projects, trained 800 individuals, and provided coaching to 200 people across 4 continents. In 2017, she was instrumental in fostering a collaborative vision between law enforcement and communities in Newark, New Jersey, aimed at addressing police abuses of power. Dr. Ferraro holds a PhD in African American Studies and a BA in sociology. Her book, Digging Up the Seeds of White Supremacy, serves as a call to reimagine our activism and organizations to confront structures of inequality in creative and regenerative ways. So I am just honored to have you here today. And I want you to take a few minutes and share with our audience more about you. How were you raised? How did your upbringing bring about the person that you are today?
Thank you, Vera. And it's an absolute honor to be here again and to be invited back on your show. There's a memory that I often start off with when I share about my passion for this work, for the work of anti-racism, but really the work of having humans stand powerfully in our vision and the best case scenarios for our world.
Yes.
When I was 5 years old, one of my first memories was playing under the table at a dinner with extended family and hearing someone say, he got promoted because he was Black. He got promoted over me because he was Black. He was Black. That's why he got promoted, because he's Black. And I remember even at 5, like hearing the hatred in his voice every time this person was saying the word Black, and it just feeling so unfamiliar and painful that it felt like someone was like stabbing my stomach over and over and over again. That level of empathy and that level of really visceral reaction to hatred being spoken in the room is something that I carried with me for forever. I feel like I still have it. And part of my passion for anti-racism was less about saving folks of color and more about me finding a way to walk as a white person in the world that had me be in integrity with my value system and had me live with this belly that I have. You can't see me, but I'm touching it, which feels lots of stuff. And I would argue, well, in that situation, the conflict in my belly kind of released because my mama, who's a huge truth teller, spoke up and said to this person, you don't have a college degree. That person had a college degree. It's time to get your butt back in college, right? And I was, I think, empowered for sure by her speaking truth in that way. And I kind of relaxed and went back to playing with people's shoes or knees or whatever it is that fascinates me under the table. But one, I think a lesson that I definitely learned very early from my mother was always speak your truth and always speak up in the face of what doesn't feel right.
Beautiful.
And two, there's this piece around, you know, I think so much about our journeys is finding our own place in the world, given what capacity we have to feel, to see. And I think that experience says a lot about how I feel and how I navigate the world. And most of my journey was about putting together the brain that I have and the belly that I have and the heart that I have and kind of finding place for all of those pieces of me.
That's beautiful. And you are the epitome of an ally. The epitome of an ally. What made you decide to get a PhD in African American Studies?
So there's a long version. I get that question a lot, right? So there's the long version and the short version, and I probably should go for something in the middle in this context. One, I feel like I was growing into allyship, and you know, white fragility hadn't been written, so you know, we didn't have. If I had come across to Peggy McIntosh's Unpacking the Knapsack, I mean, there were some writings out there about unpacking white supremacy and our role as white allies, but I hadn't come across any of them at that point in my life. I had been living in Italy for 20 years, and so I was looking for a way to weave together my passion for justice, my passion for Africa, which was also there and had shown up in, like, as a child, I was very passionate about Egypt. And then we had a family friend who was a nun in Africa and spoke about Africa in not condescending terms. And I was drawn to her like moth to a flame. Like, I would just sit at her feet for hours and say, tell me about Africa. And she would just tell me about the families, and she would see them as my people, not as over there. Like, she wasn't a savior mentality. She was a nun, but she wasn't a savior mentality nun. She was those are my people. These are my people. So I think I was trying to find a way to weave together the allyship that was growing, my passion for Africa, and the fact that when my parents moved me to Italy at the age of 10, because I was born in the Bronx, I understood what it meant to be a minority, because Italians have this huge like love-hate relationship with the US, and I felt stereotyped for the first time in my life, and I felt like no matter what I did, I was still in the stereotype of an American. And depending on the context, that could be either extremely positive or extremely negative, but it was never about me. It was about what people thought I was versus who I actually was. And so I think I was finding answers to all of those things. I started my PhD pretty early. I was 30, and I had just finished my master's in sociology. And my master's in sociology was actually on African American identity, because again, I was struggling with being Italian and being American and feeling neither and feeling both. And I decided that I wanted more. I mean, I wanted more. I was still weaving parts of me. And many people say that when you get your PhD and you write your dissertation, it's more about you than the people you're studying anyway. Because you're still weaving together parts of yourself. And I definitely was. And the last thing I'll say is that it felt very hard to be in the world as a Italian, an American who had been moved to Italy, and as a person who felt this stuff in my belly that I was saying. And when I finally realized that African Americans had a whole centuries of scholarship that could explain my feeling a sense both of belonging and distance with my Americanness, I finally felt like, oh my God, this is a group of people who can actually teach me how to be sane with everything I feel. And,
Wow.
and I think that's where I definitely went for the PhD, although I probably learned those lessons through, fortunately, many people who mentored me outside of the PhD program, but the PhD had its role.
That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And I know that your focus, one of the areas you deal with white supremacy and the impact that it has on America. And before I get into that, you being in Europe and seeing other countries, how does what goes on here and our relationships with each other, is it any different than other places, or is this the kind of thing that you find is elsewhere?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that the United States is heavily impacted by Northern European culture. And so even though you have like a huge influence of like soulfulness, right, from indigenous African culture and Native Americans and all the Europeans who migrated and the people who continue to migrate, the norms of the American way of life are still predominantly Northern European. And so I would say this is a intimacy averse culture. Every now and then you find a person who's like comfortable bonding quickly, but for the most part, there's a distance here, right? And for instance, me being Italian, there are ways that I break that distance because Italians are very intimacy prone. Like we tend to get close very fast. And it's disrespectful in this context, especially as a white woman. Like even if I navigate towards spaces of folks of color, because I'm habituated to it, but then it comes across as disrespectful coming from me as a white woman and the positionality and role I play here. So I think that's the first thing I would say, is that because this is an intimacy averse culture, it's also a culture where, because of how we're taught to, white supremacy is installed in us as white people, right? And what I'm getting to understand more clearly is that the way it's installed in us is by us being dominated. So we get dominated by our parents, and that teaches us to dominate. Like it creates this this like underbelly of frustration and resentment that then when we least expect it or do expect it comes out on other people. And I wouldn't say that's immune in other parts of the world. I would say it's a little bit less. I think here it was perfected. I mean, here, this is a land, the United States is a land where domination at all these private and public levels was perfected. So, and in fact, you know, the Nazis studied American segregation before setting up the Holocaust.
Is that right?
Yeah, South African apartheid leaders studied the United States segregation system. Like, we actually set the trend for a lot of other forms of domination in the world. And so there's a way that it gets installed here that feels deeper, more intense, longer.
And what would you say is the reason for that? The fact that it is so ingrained in our society. Would you say that it's because of slavery and that whole thing, or what? Why is it so ingrained here?
I would say because all of our institutions were rooted either in genocide or enslavement or both. So basically all of our institutions are born because a group of people say, hey, we have this common interest. Let's create a common institution. That happens all around the world. In the United States, institutions, the shared interest were Europeans occupying the land of Native Americans and being scared that Native Americans would be able to succeed in sabotaging the colonial project, right? Like succeed in taking their land back. Like, let's say it right? Like that Native Americans would succeed in taking their land back because Europeans were stealing their land with false treaties and all these like, or that indigenous or that enslaved Africans would be able to overturn the power on their plantations. I mean, they were doing most of the work. They were the ones who had the know-how, right? They were carpenters and agriculture. Like they're the ones who knew how to farm rice and farm tobacco. So indigenous Africans weren't ignorant. They were the workers who came from Africa with all this knowledge and often were the teachers of the white folks who were here, who oftentimes did not have that know-how. So there was this constant fear in the white imaginary that founded our institutions of, I can cease to exist any moment now. And so let me build an institution that can safeguard my interests and survival in the face of the majority of people I'm immersed in who are actually could overturn me in a second if they unite. So how do I split them up enough so that they can't unite against me? And that's where all of our institutions are embedded, and our culture becomes the like I talk in my book about how I see all systems, all institutions as the branches of the same tree, and the roots of the tree are what feeds the tree. And that's why fear, when it gets kind of injected in media, that's why it goes viral so fast, because it's the stuff our institutions are made of. So the moment you inject fear, everything goes crazy, because we're so accustomed to our institutions already run on fear. That's the fuel they already run on. So every time we inject fear, we're expanding the fuel. And then, you know, the question I always sit with is, what are the antidotes, and how do we take responsibility over the antidotes so those of us who don't want to fuel the system of fear can actually use our power in a more positive and transformative way?
Well, let's talk about how do we do that? How do we do that? Yeah. And now in digging up the seeds, do you do share what people can do to get past this hatred and I think the hatred stems also, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but can self-hate be a part of this situation as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We are taught to hate ourselves. That's what keeps the machine rolling. Because as long as I can't hear myself, I don't, in codependency work, they say that dysfunctional families teach you don't trust, don't feel, don't. Oh, there's one more. I can't remember it right now. But anyway, don't trust, don't feel, don't speak, I think is what it is, right? So that is what fuels the beast. Because the more we hate ourselves, the more scared we are of other people's disapproval. And then once we're scared about someone else's disapproval, then we're trapped because we lose our power and we are victims of other people's perceptions. So the system has every interest in keeping us depressed, hopeless. I was seeing I'm at the White Privilege Conference, which starts on Wednesday. It's in Seattle this year, 27.
Tell me about this conference. Tell me about it. What does that entail?
So what I love about the White Privilege Conference is that it's all workshops. So you don't kind of go to a panel and people talk at you, which is what happens in some conferences. They're 90-minute workshops by people who get invited to present that are carefully curated and selected by the organizers. It's a Black founded conference. Dr. Eddie Moore is the founder and also teaches and is just a phenomenal curator and a person and an educator. So the approach of the conference is come to learn, right? And so in 90-minute sessions, you actually have the breath to learn something, right? Like you learn to unpack, to undo. Almost every session has some focus on rigor of looking at ourselves and creating action to moving forward, like what actions can we take? And so it's a phenomenal place to come and find your people to have conversations like this. If you're stuck at home reading books, that's fabulous. And ultimately, we need to find our people. Like we have to find the people that restore us and rejuvenate us and that we find joy in the work with. Otherwise, we'll bail.
Yes.
We have to find joy in the work too.
Yes. Now, are you one of the presenters?
I am. I'm teaching 2 workshops.
And what are you going to be talking about?
So my first workshop is a beginner level and it's about global white supremacy. What I'm looking for, I'm developing a methodology to talk about white supremacy in a way that goes beyond words so that we can actually build alliances more effectively with people who have different histories and don't call it white supremacy. So, and we can unite against all the isms, right? Whether it's classism or ethnic clashes or normative homophobia, because there's a way of thinking that creates that opposition in the face of difference. And so I'm creating a methodology to help unpack why we fear difference instead of being curious about it. And
now,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ask your question.
The question.
I'm long-winded. I'm Southern Italian.
But you're here to educate. I mean, you're here for a reason. I need you here so that we can have this conversation. For people that are so ingrained in white supremacy, is there any hope for them?
I don't know. They're not my focus. Okay. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be anybody's focus. They're not my focus. Mainly because, so everything I'm about to say may just be because that's not my purpose, right? Like there may be other people for whom it's their purpose and I have complete respect. In my journey, trying to fix people and trying to fix my family in particular took way too much time. Like, I lost too many decades of my life trying to fix other folks. So, and I learned that it's very unhealthy for me because of the level of which I empathize. So what I learned is I need to stop fixing all human beings, including myself, right? And so I have a practice of profound acceptance and working with people who are open. So
Okay.
if you're open to getting better, to learning more, to leaning in, and I think there are lots of people who want to do more but don't know how. So, and that's typically who I coach, right? Or folks who are like, I have a yearning and justice pisses me off. I have a yearning to do more, but I have a full-time job and I don't really want to protest. What do I do? And so we do this deep dive work in, okay, what is your life purpose and how do you strategize with your business, your current job, how do we make what you already do serve the undoing of white supremacy and the undoing of racism, both internal to you and to the people around you? Like, basically, how do we fuel the fire of transformative change without you needing to take on a second job, without you needing to leave your day job, because, people have children and lives. And so that's my personal passion. For the staunch, I don't know. I know them. I mean, my practice is to be more and more honest about how the way they speak hatred in my presence is viscerally painful to me and makes it so that I don't want to spend time with them. And that's as far as I go.
But that's a valid point, because if more people stood up like that when they hear derogatory things about other people, and if they are sincere about wanting to make a change, the first thing would be to do exactly what you're doing. Get away from, first express, this is very offensive to me. And if you continue in this vein, we can have no communications, and that sounds like that's the stance that you've taken.
Yeah, I've had people that I've had to just say to, we need to pause this conversation because the level of hate in your voice is painful to me. It's painful for me to witness this. And I remember in one particular case, the person started yelling at me and saying, why you're not Black? Why does it hurt you? And I was like, you know what? I think that's a legitimate question. I will go find my answer and come back. I don't have it for you right now.
Wow.
I think there are a lot. I think it's to the 5-year-old story. There's some work around trauma work that says in the absence of trauma, we naturally empathize. So I think white folks were trained to stop empathizing with Black folk. Right?
At an early age. Early age.
I remember one day when I was a teenager getting the guidance, and maybe it was correct, maybe it wasn't, but an elder came up to me and said, I know you're trying really hard to empathize with Black people, but you actually looked like you were flirting with that man. Right? Like,
what?
I was 14, the person at the store, it was basically, someone in a customer service role, right? And the way I interpret that is I was told, you're being too warm with a Black person. That's not okay. Right? That's how I received it. And I was about 14 at the time. I was just kind of learning about it. Maybe 20, my early 20s. We're taught to stop empathizing. And so I think a first point of truth, because transformation has to be rooted in truth, is just to say, I'm hurting. And I've spent way too many years hiding in bathrooms because white racism doesn't happen only in the presence of Black folk. There's a lot of stuff that gets said behind doors. Mm-hmm. And those of us who empathize are hurt by it. And so these white caucus circles often have all these stories, but for the most part, they're stories of people who didn't speak up. And I know that my commitment at this point in time is definitely speaking up. I don't know if that transforms the other person. I think it's, for me, the transformation is in speaking up instead of feeling a victim.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny when I know as a Black person, when I have called out, for example, I was in Georgia and I was invited to an American veterans event, AMVETS. And the person that invited me, she was Black, but it was a very diverse event. So when we went to get our drinks, I noticed that the person that was getting my drinks literally put his hand in the glass. And I saw that. And when I commented on it, it came back as if I had done something wrong, as if I had said something wrong. And of course, I wasn't invited back. But it's okay because you're going to put your hand in a glass that you're getting ready to give me a drink out of, and I'm not supposed to say anything about it. And he was like, that's not what you saw. So anyway.
I'm so sorry, Vera. That's horrible. It's horrible that happened to you.
Well, I mean, that's just one of many stories of things that have happened, and sometimes I've spoke out and other times I've just not said anything, but I'm learning it's better to speak your mind, share and let people know this is unacceptable. You can't just do anything and treat us any kind of way. But I think one of the reasons that it is so prevalent is because even as Blacks facing this stuff, don't say anything.
And I think for the little I understand, right? For Black folk, it's exhaustion, right? Like if you were to speak up every single time, it may happen whatever number of times in a day, right? So it's like, okay, maybe not right now, right?
Choose your battles.
For white folks, it's this piece around breaking the silence that, first of all, I would argue we don't actually have to do it for you guys. We have to do it for ourselves because our oppression is like, we're also bound, right? Like as long as we're holding the position of the domineering or the oppressor, then we're also not free. And not that, Black folk don't deserve it or don't like. And I think we're at a place where we have to start doing it for more than for Black folk. Like I think it's important to also do it for our own liberation, not at the expense of yours, but as two sides of the same coin. Of like, yes, we're bound together in this shared history. And I got sidetracked in what I wanted to say, but the speaking up for us often, and that in group dynamics, oftentimes, if you know like about group psychology, if one person speaks up, often others will speak up too.
Yes.
So it's like all the bus example, like there's so many like experiments done on buses, right? If one person breaks the silence, if one person reaches out to help or to give money, then everybody reaches out to give a help. We mirror each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes something to be that first person to speak up. And that's part of why, so to the point of the white privilege conference, like that's why it's important to create our people and to hang out with other people who are refining a new way of walking in the world. Because the more we hang out with other people who are in this learning, the braver we become in our ability to see, to recognize, because we also oftentimes we don't even recognize.
Right.
I mean, we as white folk, we've actually been taught to not see.
Mm-hmm.
So there's oftentimes stuff we miss.
And that's sad. That is really sad. And I had a question I wanted to ask, and I had a senior moment. So maybe it'll come back. Oh, it'll come back. It did. Would you say that this visceral and this hatred and this degree of ignorance, for lack of a better word, also causes health problems?
Oh, absolutely. So the quality of our lives depends on the quality of our relationships. I'm also an adjunct professor at a university. I teach cultural awareness online. And I say to my students every single semester, I'm like, the reason I'm passionate about this is because if you're able to talk across different cultures, all of your relationships will thrive.
Yes.
Because the good communication across different cultures, the learning to pause, the not making assumptions, the asking questions, the actually understanding what the other person's perspective is before reacting, all of that, it's great for all relationships.
It
not
really
just
is.
intercultural relationships.
It
And
really
the people I
is.
see who are high on their hog of white supremacy, I've never said it that way, but high on their pedestal, I mean, they're often the same people who don't talk to their children, didn't go to their daughter's wedding because she didn't marry up, she married down, or no longer talk with their brothers because they had a fight over, who was going to get the house after mom and dad died. And like all these things, right? And that's very common in white families. It's very common to hear, like, you went no contact, or you don't speak to your brother anymore. You didn't go to your daughter's wedding, right? As a Southern Italian, like that shit surprises me because
Yes.
it's not our way. Like we're not conflict averse, so we get up in your face. We're like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not talking to me? Like, knock on people's doors,
Right.
until all the neighbors see you. And it's growing. Like the more American version of globalization increases, the more I hear, even in Southern Italy, of families who aren't talking or stop talking or things like that. And the research shows that the quality of someone's life depends on the quality of their relationship.
Yes, and forgiveness and forgiveness.
So if your relationships suck, then your quality of life is lower, and with a lower quality of life also come more health issues.
Yes.
Because the adrenaline release that communities or families are supposed to serve don't serve. And yeah, so I would absolutely say that.
And all of this, okay, so what we need to do is look at what kinds of things can, and I want to do it from both ends, because even though, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of replays, and I am going to be putting this on TikTok so people can see it. Awesome. I am. So what kinds of things can people do? Because I believe that heart conditions, diabetes, and all the things, a lot of it is caused by the way we treat each other and how we treat people. I know when I was in Atlanta, and one of the things that I did, I drove rideshare. And that was one of the best things that I could have done in Atlanta, because I met people from all over the world. And it was just beautiful to have these conversations with people from all over the world. I remember having a white supremacist as a writer. But
I'm so sorry.
But you know what? We were able to talk. He shared, he made it clear how he felt, and I made it clear why he shouldn't feel that way. But we ended up having a conversation. And when he got out of my car, he even acknowledged the value of the conversation, and it did make him think about some things, so even if you are in the midst of people who don't think like you, who may not even like you, having those conversations can really possibly make a difference.
And I think if it doesn't make a difference for the other person, it may make a difference for ourselves.
Yes.
Like it can give us the opportunity to feel our connection with other human beings, even in the face of difference.
Even in the face of difference.
And feeling connected is one of those things that creates, oh my God, I'm trying to remember how you pronounce it. Anyway, the happy hormone. Oxytocin, is that right? I always mispronounce it because I think of it in Italian. All right, things we can do.
Yes, and I'm going to put them in the comments.
Oh, I have a 4 list just to try to not go and get.
Okay, well, let me put your information up here so people will know how to reach you. Okay, this is your LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's my LinkedIn. That's an easy way to find me. I'm not hard to find.
Okay, so you can find her on LinkedIn and also
my Substack. I'm definitely growing my Substack since Facebook banned me and I'm no longer on Facebook.
Let's talk about Facebook banning you.
All right, let's say the 4 things. I want to say the 4 things first and then we'll go to
Okay.
All right, just to not let Facebook dominate us all the time. Okay. So the first thing is like wanting to define white supremacy. Like white supremacy is rooted in the hierarchy of human beings, where whiteness supposedly would be superior to everybody else, right? So at the root is this thing around hierarchy. So any time that we're judging something as better than something else, that should be examined. So the first thing we can do is and one of the ways is if we say our mind is more important than our heart, right? If we say that the individual is more important than the group, anytime we have to fall into this false dualism of one thing is absolutely always better than the other, that should be looked at with suspicion. In particular, when we're trying to put human beings in a hierarchy, because we're all equal in dignity. There is no hierarchy between human beings. But there are a lot of other hierarchies of better than, less than, that kind of go in from the back door, even when we believe everybody's equal on the surface. So that's the first thing I would say. Interrogate anytime you judge something as good or bad. And in particular, if you fall into good people, bad people, interrogate that. Anytime you're tempted to think good people, bad people, interrogate it. Because there's never a group that's completely good and there's never a group that's completely bad. We are all got a little bit of both of that in there. Second, I would say connect with your essence. Part of what white supremacy does is it puts us all in this rat race where we're trying to prove that we're better than, because if we were actually better than, we wouldn't have to prove it. So what we do is we all end up in this rat race that never ends, where we're stuck trying to prove for our whole damn lives. And by we in that case, I would say that's all of us, because white folks are trying to prove that we're superior. Folks of color are trying to prove that they're equal or not inferior. We're just stuck in this rat race of approval.
Yes.
Versus actually knowing our essence. Who are we at our heart, in our core, right? Freedom has driven my life as long as I've been alive. My mother used to call me Independent Devil as a little kid. When I was 2 years old, that was my nickname as a toddler. So
wow.
Freedom from restraints is something that's just has always been my drive. Wow. What's your drive? What's at that core? For some people, it's connection. For some people, right? I'm saying liberation. For some people, it's community. For some people, it's all family. But whatever that thing is that you are when you're not scared, cultivate it, nurture it, water it, let it be luscious and alive. Because anytime the world gets more of your aliveness,
yes, yes. I love it. I love it.
Third, groups. Find your people. Find the people who love that aliveness part of you and nurture it with you and encourage you to be more and more of that all the time. Sometimes our families are not those people. Like sometimes our families don't want us too free or too alive or too, the loose women of the bunch, right? Like sometimes our families are there to teach us right from wrong, and they're not, like we get to a certain point of our lives and they don't want to teach us to be more of ourselves. Find people who invite you and honor you for being more of yourself.
I love it.
And third, nurture your best case scenario. There is so much talk about dystopia and we're the worst case scenario of what's happening in our world. Nurture your own best case scenario. Imagination has power. Vision has power. We need to be able to create a world that is our best case scenario. And it's not happening if everybody's thinking about our worst case scenario. So those are my 4 things.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. And I've sent them into the comments so that afterwards people will still see them. So nurture your own best case scenario versus worst case scenario, and find your people. I love that. Find your people who love your aliveness.
The last thing I'll say is we need to stop scapegoating. So
Yes.
scapegoating is a tendency that, and I would love all the healers, like I want to call on all the healers of the world and all the coaches and teachers to focus on scapegoating the way we've focused the past 10 years on unpacking narcissism. Scapegoating is when we put on somebody else an aspect of ourselves we don't want to look at.
Yes.
It feels like crap. And instead of looking at it, what we do is we blame someone else for it.
Yes.
We're doing that on a societal level. We're doing it on a worldwide level. Lots of different cultures do it. In order for humanity to jump to the next level, we need to stop scapegoating and own our.
Yes.
On your show, I'm not. We have to own our weaknesses.
So take responsibility.
Yes.
For who you are and what you're doing.
Yes. So this is actually a good transition. So Facebook banned me because I was posting daily against ICE. I had I lived half of my life in both places, the United States and Italy. And many of the people I knew from Italy were telling me, Rita, please post more, because they were not getting any of the positive insights of what people were doing in Minneapolis to organize. All they were getting is what ICE abuses were. Mm-hmm. And so people, and unfortunately, Italy right now has also a right-wing government that is extremely pro our current administration. And so I think even Italian news is getting censored. And so people asked me intentionally, like, would you amplify the good stuff that's happening? Because we keep on thinking, where the hell are Americans? Like, exactly how pacified are you? You're not doing anything? And I was like, no, there's stuff happening. They're like, well, what's happening? We don't see anything. And so after, I think it was like 2 weeks of me posting 3 to 4 times what was the organizing that was happening in opposition to ICE, I got banned from Facebook. And they asked me for a 360 of my face to report. Like, I wasn't allowed to report it unless I gave a 360 of my face.
Oh, wow.
And that's the technology that we know that Israel was using to recognize protesters in the bunch. And often harass protesters. Mm-hmm. And so I decided I wasn't giving Facebook my 360.
Good for you.
I'm off. I've been off Facebook for a couple of months, and I've actually I think it's been an absolute blessing.
Okay. And you said YouTube banned you also?
No, I'm still on YouTube.
Okay.
I'm still on YouTube. But I'm building my Substack.
Tell me more about Substack.
Substack's a phenomenal platform that is, first of all, a lot of journalists who have been kicked out by
Yes.
like Joy Reid has a show on Substack. I'm trying to remember the Left Hook. I don't remember what his name is, but a lot of journalists who lost their platform.
Don Lemon, I think he has the show.
Don Lemon as well. And it allows you to do kind of put posts the way Facebook does, but also to do a podcast and also write articles. And so I have a commitment to building my platform on Substack because I'm writing articles regularly now. Not quite every week just yet, but that's my goal. And I feel like it's getting me more. I realized that posting on Facebook was a cop-out. Like, it made me feel like I was doing something when I really wasn't.
Okay.
And I'm a lot more conscientious about what I want to say and how I want to say and to whom do I want to say it now.
Okay.
So that's more to come.
So do you have a link that I can put in for your Substack?
Yeah, sure. I will put it in the chat.
Put it in the private chat, and then I can copy and paste.
Yeah, it's ritasfierro.substack.com. I put it in the chat here.
Okay, I got it. Okay, let me.
Oh, Vera, it's always fun to talk with you.
Yes. And now tell me about your coaching and what exactly. Here, I better say, it says Substack. Okay. So let me put that up here. So you can find her at Rita S. Fierro at .substack.com. Okay, awesome. I'm going to also put that I'm going to make a copy of it.
Yeah. As I was saying before, I feel like there are lots of change makers who want to do more. I tend to coach two groups of people. It's either individuals who maybe have their own business or work in organizations but want to be more committed to social justice, who are finding a way to feel like they're doing enough, basically, right? Like, the response in the face of so much injustice is often either hopelessness or I'm not doing enough. And so what I help people do is create strategy in a way that they feel and know in the face of what it takes to do systems change work, how what they're doing is contributed to being a solution instead of being part of the problem. And some of that is inner work. Some of that is finding the right group of allies and peoples. Like, sometimes people do stuff very privately and they kind of yearn for a bigger stage. And that takes bigger partners. And sometimes it's a matter of what I call social justice strategy. It's like, okay, this is the world I want to see. This is the vision that I believe in. How do I know that the actions I'm taking are actually going towards that vision? And part of that is understanding backlash. Like, backlash is an integral part of social change. There's never been social change without backlash. And I'm sure your elders have told you this. Like, I'm not surprised that he got elected. Like, this is America.
Yeah. So let me ask you, how does the attack on DEI impact on your work?
Interesting. I think the obvious impact is that, we're shifting. We're always shifting. We're in an overt backlash right now. And I have mixed feelings because, honestly, until the attack on DEI, I've been doing this coaching work at least for 3 years now. I spent the year before the election interviewing politicians to ask them to create a social justice strategy together. And nearly every Democratic politician I talked with said, yeah, sounds great, but I don't have the money to fund it. And I would say, well, when we lose the election, will this be important? And then after the election was lost, suddenly everyone was talking about strategy. And it's interesting. We have, unfortunately, it takes this level of pain for us to wake up.
And and we are at a high level of pain.
Or for the white folk who are in a position of power and are making the money decisions to wake up. So, yeah, as much, I think the work is definitely continuing. People are just changing words and even scraping websites. I know lots of ways in which the work is continuing that I'm not sharing because I don't want to make those folks vulnerable. But there are projects continuing, people continuing, right? There's also a lot that has ended. But there are also people waking up right now. And so I think there's everything and the opposite of everything. And there's a friend of mine who says this, I will dare to say it. Maybe part of DEI needed to die. Like maybe there is the next stretch of the work. And this is like, if we think about the first presidency, 45, right? And then they regrouped during Biden administration. Now they definitely came back stronger. Well, maybe this is the time where we're regrouping and then we come back stronger.
Yes, we've got to, because right now what we're experiencing is not sustainable.
No,
it is not sustainable.
And I would say our systems were collapsing before the current administration. The current administration is making it go a lot faster. But I would say our systems have been collapsing for some time. There's an article in the Stanford Journal for Social Innovation that's been talking about systemic collapse. And I'm glad they've named it. I'm trying to remember the authors, but I don't this minute. But I'm glad that article was published and that it's being named as systemic systems collapse, because that's what it is. I think the nonprofit industrial complex is dying strongly, fastly. And I think more and more people have been competing for smaller and smaller pots of money. But that's been happening before the current administration. It's just going faster now because of the end of USAID and all the earmarking and all the funds that have not been given to nonprofits who had it earmarked for them. I know so many nonprofits in my network have ended their service, but there's something for us to transform there. Like there's a new level of work that's emerging. I think I'm starting to actually see it in the collaborations that I noticed. There's so much that's moving underground. And you're not going to find it in the local news. So that's why it's important to go find your people. Go find your people who are finding solutions despite how painful what's happening on the surface is, because there is a ferment underneath. There are people who are problem solving. There are people who are building. There are people who are the mycelium under the surface is working. And it's just a matter of being connected with the right people so you can see it and not feel hopeless.
Yes. Okay. So I need you to give us, I can't believe this hour has gone by as quickly as it has. I cannot. So my question, can you give us one more nugget or some encouragement in 30 seconds?
The system was built by people who came together for shared interest. It can be changed by people. Dying is not always a bad thing. It's a shift. It's a moment in time. It's transformation. We need to grieve what's dying and also not discount how powerful and incredibly creative humanity is. And I think there's a lot more. We have an infinite power to create something else. And we're probably in the initial stages of that.
Yes. Well, Rita, I really appreciate you being here. And I am going to ask you to hold on, don't leave. And I want to say I'm going to pull you down. And I want to say to my listening audience, thank you for being here. God bless you. And you have a wonderful, wonderful remaining week. And I will see you on Thursday.
Let's talk about it. On the Vera Show. The Vera Show.